Yesterday, we talked about some of the guards, and today we are going to be talking about some of the wings from the 2025 NBA draft class. Now that we know where everybody is going to be playing next season, of course, things technically could still change, but at this time, we're not expecting or anticipating any rookies being traded, though we will talk about one of the rookie wings that there are rumors of a deal, but I fully expect that to just end up being rumors and people trying to get some clicks. I don't think that this is a legitimate player to be traded. We will talk about him. Uh, Spoiler alert, it's Ace Bailey. We'll talk about him. I did say with last episode, and we're going to hold true to that for this one, that we're not going to be focusing on some of the top guys we've talked about a lot. But since there has already been a good bit of news with Ace Bailey, just since the draft, we'll talk about it a little bit. But we won't spend too much time because we spend a ton of time talking about the top guys for this class, but now we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the players that are more towards the bottom or the middle rounds of like a 12-team league or middle portion of the draft. Not the players that you're going to hear about all the time or have already heard about all the time that you're going to take with your first 5 or 10 picks. Some of the more like slightly more in depth, and then maybe hit on a few of the deep sleepers for this class. Before we get into talking about that, I just want to remind you guys that BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing and football season around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news and scores, and even live in-game betting. From the MLB to UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering info. And then in between the games, you can head over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and a live casino. And then you can head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, we're going to be talking about a few of the forwards, or wings is what we're calling it, just to space things out, guards, wings, and bigs. And this isn't like yesterday we talked about point guards and shooting guards, and today we're talking about small forwards and power forwards. And so, like, it's almost like a play style thing, but it's not really definite. It's just a way to organize these picks into 3 separate episodes. That's it. So if you think I'm talking about someone that is more of a big than a wing or whatever, like, I'm not set on these players like having to maintain these labels. It's just a way to organize things for me. We'll start off talking about Ace Bailey, who I have ranked 4th on my dynasty rankings, and he is a player I was a bit lower on pre-draft, that I've talked myself into a little bit more here. I think, 1, he is a really talented scorer. 2, he rebounds and blocks shots. Like, those were positive categories in college. I think playing with more talent on his team, Utah isn't the most talented team in the NBA, but relative to who like the teams will be playing against, I think his teammates are much better than the supporting cast he had at Rutgers outside of Dylan Harper. So the negative assist turnover ratio that we've talked about for months, I'm not as concerned about. I think he is a better passer than what he showed. I'm not expecting him to be a 5 assists per game guy. I think that he could hover around 2 assists per game. Totally fine. Not a strong category. But I'm not anticipating him being some just absolute liability and such a negative playmaker that it's turns out to be an issue. It's just going to be a weak category for him. But maybe it's a little better than we're expecting. Just to mention what he did at Rutgers last season, he averaged 17.6 points, 7.2 rebounds, 1.3 assists, 1 steal, 1.3 blocks, 1.6 threes per game. Subpar free throw shooter, average field goal percentage. The free throw shooting, I think, worries me a tad more than the subpar field goal percentage because he takes really tough shots. Now, I am a tad concerned. It feels to me like he's more of a tough shot maker than a shot creator. Like, he's not creating a ton of really good looks for himself, but he's creating shots that he can hit. But my fear is that against better defenses than what he faced in college, that might turn into more of an issue. But we'll see. As far as the numbers that he produced, I'm a little bit more interested in. And while he did have to create really tough shots for himself in college, I think Utah's more creative offensively. I think having more talent around him will help. I think he will get better looks in the NBA in this system. I've said this a couple of times now. This is a lot of what he wanted based on reports, was that like it's a situation where he can step in and now maybe he's the franchise player. And yes, there's a bunch of talented guys there and players that I still like. Like I do genuinely really still believe in Taylor Hendricks, a couple of the bigs as well, like Walker Kessler, Kyle Filipowski were good. Laurie Markkinen is still a high level player that we'll see what they end up doing with him. Some of the guards are still intriguing, but Ace Bailey can be the guy here. So the recent reports are that, I mean, like I said with yesterday's episode, I don't remember if I said for this one, these are pre-recorded episodes. So if anything changes between Saturday when I'm recording this and Tuesday when this comes out, hopefully not much has changed. But at this point, the reports were that Ace Bailey is reporting to Utah on Saturday. They start summer league practice on Monday. So at this point, this episode's coming out. Hopefully he is practicing and nothing has really changed there that would just make all of this irrelevant. So hopefully all the drama dies down, because I think things can work out pretty well for him in Utah in a way that also maximizes what we think he can be in fantasy basketball. In certain landing spots, I wasn't as optimistic about him, but this is a spot where he can be a high volume scorer in year one and still be able to contribute maybe some rebounds to get some extra value in category leagues, some defensive stats specifically with the blocks. I'm a little bit more optimistic about him, and the fact that despite being told not to draft him, Danny Ainge, Austin Ainge just said, we're taking you anyway. We think you're the best player available. You don't do that unless you're going to practically roll out the red carpet and say, we're here to make you work, to make this worth our time, worth our pick. You don't do this to say, well, you have to earn your spot in the starting lineup. I mean, you probably still have to earn it, but it's not like they're going to not try and maximize him. I don't know. I'm optimistic about what they're going to try and do with him. I think you don't draft him to say, all right, now you have to beat out all these other players and you're going to sit on the bench until you do. Like, you try and make this thing work. So that's why I have him fourth in my dynasty rankings. All right. The next player for forwards in my dynasty rankings is Colin Rory Boyles, who we've talked about a lot. I'm not going to really hit on that today. Just really disappointed by the landing spot. The next player that we are going to talk about is Rasheer Fleming, who is second highest ranked second round pick in my dynasty rankings. I have him 18th, going to the Suns. The Suns were working hard to make some trades to move up and nab him at 31. I had him as a top 20 pick pre-draft, but I was expecting late first. Was not expecting him to fall around 2. There's a lot to like here for fantasy managers. Just looking at the numbers from last season. 14.7 points, 8.5 rebounds, 1.3 assists. Fine. Nothing too special there, but pretty solid on the glass. 1.4 steals, 1.5 blocks, both very attractive. 1.8 threes, very attractive. Field goal percentage, 53.1. 3-point percentage, 39. Free throw percentage, 74.3. Not super excited about that. Doesn't shoot a ton of free throws because he does a lot of his work from outside the arc. Quick math, 45% of his shot attempts were beyond the arc, college arc, last season. But I think what really gets me excited about Rasheer Fleming is the 7'5" wingspan that you're seeing on the screen if you're watching. 6'8" without shoes, like 6'9", almost 6'10" forward that has a 7'5" wingspan, hits threes, and gets defensive stats. Sign me up in fantasy basketball. The other factor here is that he ends up in Phoenix, who just traded away Kevin Durant, got back Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks. So, like, right now, yes, he's going to have to earn a spot. And yes, Phoenix can still make moves, but all those things are really enticing for Rasheer Fleming. And I have no idea what the starting lineup is going to look like. He's going to be competing for minutes with Ryan Dunn, Royce O'Neal, Cody Martin, even Dylan Brooks to an extent. So no, maybe he's not a lock to start, but I really like Ryan Dunn, but Royce O'Neal and Cody Martin shouldn't be competition for minutes. And I think if you're really wanting to make this thing work around Devin Booker, Jalen Green, Bradley Beal, assuming all of them are still there. I mean, Booker will be, but and they're saying Jalen Green will be, but we'll see about Beal. What does this rotation look like early on? I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, there's definitely a real scenario where Rasheer Fleming and Ryan Dunn are both playing 25 minutes per game within a year or two. I don't know. I think having as much defense as possible. His defense was not a strong point for the Suns in the past over the last couple of seasons, but adding in Dylan Brooks, still having Ryan Dunn, adding in Rasheer Fleming, I think a lot of those things really help. And Fleming is also a guy that's a much better shooter than Ryan Dunn. And Ryan Dunn was a much better shooter as a rookie than we were expecting him to be, which was awesome because I really like him still. But Rasheer Fleming is already that type of shooter. And Ryan Dunn was much better than we were expecting. So talking about two really solid 3-and-D forwards that they can pair next to Jalen or next to Devin Booker in lineups. Also helps out with because Mark Williams isn't the best defensive center, so but Kamen Malawach there as well. I like the pieces that the Suns have been adding. I really do. Thought they had a home run of a draft. The trade for Mark Williams was interesting, but at the same time, like center has been an issue for them. DeAndre Ayton was the solution for a while since they traded him. It's been a disaster, and DeAndre Ayton isn't my favorite center. So not to just break down the whole Suns lineup, but I'm interested to see how he fits into the rotation. But I think also, yes, he comes in, he'll turn 21 first day of Vegas Summer League. So he's still young. I mean, he's a slightly older prospect, but maybe, I mean, are we convinced that Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal, and Cody Martin are still going to be there in 3 years? No, I'm actually convinced otherwise. They could have Rasheer Fleming and Ryan Dunn. They could have Jalen Green and Devin Booker. Maybe 3 years down the road, the lineup is, again, things can change, but it's Devin Booker, Jalen Green with Booker in more of a playmaking role, Ryan Dunn, Rasheer Fleming as some incredible 3-and-D wings that are really helping make up for Jalen Green and Devin Booker on the defensive end, and then Malawach down low. That's an exciting lineup to me. I mean, I'm not a huge Jalen Green fan, but maybe being around Devin Booker helps him mold his game to be more like Booker. Maybe he commits a little bit more to the defensive end. He just grows. He's still young, and I think that he hasn't been great so far, but there's still obviously talent with Jalen Green. So I honestly like Phoenix is recovering really well from what looked like a pretty abysmal situation when it became evident that the Beal, Booker, Kevin Durant big three was not going to work. They've recovered really well, in my opinion. They don't have many assets moving forward, but I like what they did in this draft. I am still very high on Rasheer Fleming. That's why I have him ranked 18th in my rookie rankings for this class. All right. Next player we're going to talk about. We'll talk about Noa Essengue. We're going to talk about him because, and we're going to pull up, Data Baller doesn't have a ton of his stats here, so we're just going to pull up the few that they have instead of the measurements at the top. But drafted 12th by Chicago. I have him 19th in my dynasty rankings, and he is a prospect I like, but I don't know. It's just a weird feeling. Like I'm just like not as optimistic about him as I was pre-draft. Now that I'm realizing, okay, he's in Chicago. How does this work? And I think was a good pick for Chicago, but I don't know. It's interesting how he fits into this rotation. And just to show you how committed they are to making him work, they also just traded Lonzo Ball for Isaac Okoro today, which, I mean, by the time this comes out, it'll be a few days. Why? It was not a great trade as it is because they gave up a better player for a worse player, and they gave up a player with 1 year left and a team option on his contract for a player with 2 years left that costs more, that has been less productive. I don't get it. But then also, where does Noa Essengue fit in this lineup? Josh Giddey and Kobe White are starting. Nikola Vucevic is starting. So that leaves 2 starting spots. They have Kobe White, who can shoot, Vuce, who can shoot for a big, Josh Giddey, who's not a great shooter. Assuming Modest Pizzella starts, and yeah, he can shoot. But then you have, I mean, is Kevin Huerter starting there? Okay, so then are Noa Essengue, Isaac Okoro, and Patrick Williams competing for the backup forward minutes? Is their goal to take this guy, Noa Essengue, this 18-year-old in the lottery, and then not play him much? I think that's the weirdest part to me, is because unless you're expecting Okoro to just be like a backup shooting guard, but you have Iota Sumu, I don't know why you make this trade and just probably take away a few minutes from Noah Essengue, who you just drafted. Outside of the fact that they didn't really get much draft capital back either, they got this defensive non-shooter who, that's a lot of what I think Noa Essengue will be good at. He's not a great shooter. You want him playing defense and cutting and getting buckets without the ball in his hands. I mean, just look at the numbers we have on the screen. 76% free throw rate is insanely high. Took a ton of free throws this past season. Also got into a lot of foul trouble, which is also just another interesting thing. But he's not a good shooter right now. Got to the free throw line at a high rate, shot 72%. It's not a phenomenal number. So I don't know. It's I'm a little less optimistic about him as I was pre-draft, and I think part of it is the landing spot. But I'm not sure if there would have been a much better landing spot that would have been way more confident in him landing at that spot. Yeah, that's how I want to say that. So I still like him as a player. He's 18 years old. There's still a good bit to be intrigued about. Maybe he does improve as a shooter. We know he can play hard, compete on the defensive end, and he can make winning plays on both ends of the floor, can cut. I think that Josh Giddey will enjoy playing with him and getting some assists directly to layups, or for layups and dunks to Noa Essengue. But yeah, I'm a little bit lower on him. That's why I have him 19th on my board. Talking about another small forward that got drafted. Where is he? Here he is. It is Carter Bryant, who was drafted by the Spurs. I have him 20th. And now I'm a little lower on him now, but I want to just reiterate, this was a really good pick by the Spurs. I think he can be a really productive NBA player, but I have to put him a little bit lower in dynasty rankings with this landing spot for a number of reasons. One, right now, I would assume the starting lineup is De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, Victor Wembanyama, maybe, barring more moves happening. That leaves Dylan Harper off the bench, Keldon Johnson off the bench, Jeremy Sohan off the bench. And yeah, Carter Bryant is going to come in and be one of the best wing defenders on this team immediately, I think. But I do have, as everyone does, like, there's question marks about how he's going to progress as an offensive player. Not because it's like there's all this evidence that he can't do it, but he just didn't really get the opportunity to in Arizona. And how does that translate to the NBA? He was a good shooter, 37% from three. Not a great free throw shooter, 69.5%. Played 19.3 minutes per game, averaged 6.5 points, 4.1 rebounds, an assist, 0.9 steals, a block, 1.13. So a low volume college career, but almost a 7-foot wingspan, almost a 40-inch vertical, a strong defensive player. I think it was a phenomenal pick by the Spurs, and I think that there is upside for him to be an impactful player in fantasy leagues, specifically because of the defensive stats. Pretty good rebounder as well. Hopefully the shooting translates and he's able to be an effective shooter in the NBA. And then how much more can his offensive game grow? So I do like the future for him, but right now, is there 15 minutes for him per game as a rookie? Maybe, depending on how much the Spurs value the defense. Maybe, and we'll see. Victor Wembanyama can basically clean up any error that we make. So, yeah, we want perimeter defenders, but maybe we're okay with having Keldon Johnson play a little bit extra, Harrison Barnes play a little bit extra, because they're able to contribute more on offense, and we know Wemby can clean things up. So yeah, having Carter Bryant in the rotation is helpful, but we don't need to give him 25 minutes to be a really good defensive team. Because, I mean, there are other good defenders in that team. I'm just saying maybe Carter Bryant is more of a long-term play. Now, can he develop into a solid player on both ends of the floor? Sure. Is there a chance that he doesn't end up being a great offensive option at all? Like, the sub 70% free throw shooting is a touch concerning, because that is a good translator for how effective a player is going to be as a shooter in the NBA, more so than just how well they hit college threes. But I think if he's on the floor, he's going to have the ability to get defensive stats. Now, he did have some foul issues in college, averaged 2.3 fouls per game in 19 minutes. That's the issue part, is that he played less than half the game and averaged almost 2.5 fouls. So in theory, double that to get closer to the 40-minute game. And obviously some of the numbers don't work out, but basically the ratio of fouls to minutes played was not ideal. And it was fine in a low volume role, because maybe that's what it was. That allowed him to be more aggressive. And so they were fine with him getting fouls because he wasn't playing or having to play 35 minutes per game, 35 of the 40 minutes. But then if he's having to scale back the aggression in a larger role, do the defensive numbers fall off much, or is that just still something he's able to contribute? Be interesting to see how he plays as a rookie, but I'm a tad lower on him for the landing spot, because I just don't think that this is a situation where, like, say he went to a Brooklyn. I honestly think you could have taken the top 15 players of this, I mean, really everyone in this class, and said, yeah, but if they went to Brooklyn, I think I'd be a little higher on them, or a little bit more optimistic. And then, of course, Brooklyn goes and has to take 3-point guards and Danny Wolf, and then Drake Powell, who I obviously still am very high on as a player, but not as high on in fantasy basketball. So yeah, had Carter Bryant been in a place like Brooklyn, probably would be a little bit more excited about him than San Antonio. But still a talented player. Talent wins out, but San Antonio also has a number of other really young players. So we'll see how he progresses over the next few seasons, but that's why I'm a touch lower on him than I was pre-draft with how I felt about him in fantasy leagues. All right. I like Nick Clifford. I really hope that the Kings make moves to give him more minutes this season. I think he's a really good player. Let's see, who else do we really want to talk about? We can talk about, let's see, I don't want to do too many more deeper dives, just make sure to hit on enough players. Adou Thiero, drafted to the Lakers. I have him 28th. He was a second-round pick. The Lakers traded up to get him. They traded up from 55 to 45 and 45 to 36, just giving up cash. So they're like, I mean, one, it's so strange that that's just like a thing, that they were able to just like trade up 19 spots in the second round. All they have to do is just like pay money. Like, it's weird that that's even like a thing. But Adou Thiero, a good like defensive wing, should be able to get some steals. He's a really good athlete, nice wingspan there, a blur in transition. Like, he's not doing a ton with the ball in his hands. He's not hitting threes. So like, there are issues there that caused him to fall to the second round. But when you have Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves, then yeah, adding in a perimeter defender that is also really athletic and can finish, in transition, or yeah, I think it's a really good fit on the Lakers. And if he's able to get to 20 minutes per game, we can get some steals. There's a good bit to like there, a lot of upside for him to contribute at a high level. Who else? Noah Penda in Orlando is an interesting fit, because they already have two 6'10" playmakers who aren't phenomenal shooters or subpar shooters. Then Noah Penda is probably like 6'8", 6'9" playmaker who's a good defender, but doesn't finish well at the rim and doesn't shoot the ball well. So interesting to see how he fits into that lineup. I have him at 32. Who I guess let's see who's be more of like a deep sleeper. I'm lower on Liam McNeely. I have him at 37. Think he can be better in the NBA than he was in college. I think he will be, but I just don't see too many categories where he contributes outside of maybe points and threes if things go well. Lakers also added Eric Dixon on a two-way after he went undrafted. Was a phenomenal scorer in college. I'm assuming this is like one of those like basically preferred undrafted two-ways where they're like telling teams like, hey, don't draft my guy. We're signing a two-way with the Lakers after he goes undrafted. Do not draft him. And somehow that works in the NBA. That's just the way it is. Who else? Markovich, who the Bucks drafted in the second round, I have him at 38. He is going to be stashed next season. So this would be probably a late second round pick that you're wanting to stash in your league as well. If there is like some sort of minor slot and you're in like a 30-team league, that's a good spot for that to be used because I think he is a really talented offensive player. Pretty surprising the Bucks took a guy like him when they're trying to convince Giannis to stay, and there was reports that Giannis has his eyes on what they're drafting, but it's like it's a 47th pick and that's all they had. Like, I'm sure he's a little bit more interested in what happens in free agency than with the draft, but interesting that they took a guy that they're just going to have to stash or that they're choosing to stash. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Tomorrow's episode will be talking about centers. I think there will be a few more guys to talk about because I am pretty excited about. Already liked a lot of these bigs before the draft, and now I think some of them were in really good landing spots, some of them not so much, but there's definitely going to be a lot to talk about. That's going to do it for this episode. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you like or hate. You can also, again, you can tweet at me. I don't have my DMs open because I don't like the spam messages that Twitter has, which are really just annoying. But you can just tag me in tweets. I'll respond. Let me know what you like or want to hear more of. If there's any players in particular you want me to talk about, please feel free to let me know. They can be rookies. They can be players that have been in the league, whatever. But yeah, thank you for listening or watching. That's going to do it for this episode, and I will see you next time.